Welcome, everyone, to the Islanders Never Say Die podcast. I'm your host, TJ, and with me here, as always, is our NHL analyst and expert, the grumpy old man. They say there's no shame to his game because he's always the same.
That's me.
Grump,
Yeah.
it's good to be back. Well, how many episodes? I guess we've skipped a few weeks, Grumpy, but we're back.
I don't know. In typical TJ fashion, we're running late.
Oh, we're not running late. We're running right on time, Grump. Right on time. This is called Islander time. You know how what is it? Lombardi used to have Lombardi time, Grumpy. We're running on Islander time, Grumpy.
TJ time. We're running on TJ time.
Late and never achieving anything. Just kidding, of course. For those of you who are new to the channel and new to the show, the podcast, welcome. This is a all Islanders podcast that takes place every single Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, sometimes a little before. It's really between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're new to the channel and you like the content that we produce and you like this podcast, you find it funny, you enjoy the topics we discuss, you like the conversation, there's a few things that we encourage you that you do. We encourage you to subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss out on any of our future episodes, right? Or any of our future podcasts. And also to like the video, right? If you like the video, it lets myself, Grumpy, and when SunX shows up, occasionally SunX know that you like the content that we produce. And also, right, it helps juice the algorithm. It helps get this podcast, this Islanders podcast, out to the masses. For today's episode, we got a few little tidbits to speak about that should be enjoyable. But one other piece of housekeeping that I want to go ahead and mention: we do have a secondary podcast. It's an all sports podcast called TJ the Old Man. Now that podcast takes place every single Sunday. So tomorrow at between, again, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's why it is crucial. It's of dire need that you have to subscribe on YouTube so you get that update and the notification when we go live, because it doesn't always go exactly on at the same exact time, but it's usually between 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, that show is just myself, Grumpy, and SunX shooting the shit, talking about all things sports, talking NFL, talking European football, we talk NHL, we talk NBA, we talk MLB, we talk anything and everything sports on that show. And you can find that in the link in the description below or as a featured page here on our YouTube channel, where you'll see TJ and the Grumpy Old Man. Well, Grump, it's a summer, right? We're going to see in a few weeks, I guess, Islanders start reporting to camp. What is it, about 4 or 5 weeks from now, Grump?
I don't even think it's that long.
Not that long, maybe. Yeah, I was about to say, because the NHL is starting, I think, earlier October, not late October like it was this last year.
No, it always starts early October. Okay. Last year was early October as well.
Okay. It's starting, right? It starts in early October. They report to camp here in a few weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
You haven't heard anything from the Islanders since day one of free agency when they signed Anthony Duclair to a 4-year deal.
Well, yes. That was the big move. That was the big move this offseason.
That was the move. That was a Patty Waugh move, by the way.
Yeah, it was. We'll talk about it. It's funny. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see, but just I think maybe it was 2 days ago or 3 days ago. Do you remember there was a lot of talk about Rutger McGroarty and how, oh gosh, this is a guy to where he's looking to be moved. He wasn't going to sign in Winnipeg, so they needed to trade away his rights. And leading up to the draft, people are all eyeing him. Oh man, wouldn't it be great if we could go ahead and pull off a deal? We could trade away some draft picks, some capital to get a guy like Rutger McGroarty on the team. Now, he was officially traded. Grumpy, I'm not sure if you happen to see who it was to. He got traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And now again, I think very highly of Rutger McGroarty. He was traded there from Winnipeg to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Penguins sent Braden Yeager going back to Winnipeg. Both two relatively highly selected individuals there on that side. I'd say that McGroarty is probably pretty close to starting to being ready to contribute in some capacity. But we didn't have the firepower to move and acquire a guy like that. That's what happens when you trade away your first and sometimes second round pick every single year in a row. You just don't have the young players to offer a team like Winnipeg, who is looking to replace a prospect with a high level prospect.
Well, that was the whole thing. It was a prospect for prospect deal. We don't have any prospects, so it's a deal we're incapable of making. I kind of like the deal from Pittsburgh's angle. I don't know how much it moves the needle for them this year, but I think it was a smart move for them moving forward. I mean, he showed he can play. It seems like he's closer to being ready to play than not, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and Jaeger, I mean, he's okay, he's still playing in juniors, right? And McGrody's playing in college, right? So it's not like it's saying there's a big difference in that level, but you're going to play against more men in college hockey than you will in, juniors, where you're playing 16, 17, 18-year-old boys and you're 19, almost 20 years old. So on that side, you're playing a little bit against older men there in that league. Less games, of course. But Braden Yeager's still playing in juniors. He's got a few years, I think, until he's ready to start making a contribution. But Rucker McGrody, a guy that was, hey, thrown out there, maybe we should go ahead and kick the tires on him. I wish, hell, if we didn't, give away that, I think it was the 13th overall pick there for Romanoff, we could have had him. We could have selected him in that draft. But again, it's all in the past there on that spot. The Islanders, though, right? What did we talk about all season long? There was going to be one move that was made, and that was pretty much it. It was Anthony Duclair and nothing else. We could say with a pretty strong degree of confidence right now, Cal Clutterbuck's not returning to the team, and neither is Matt Martin and Bortuzzo, right? Those are the three guys that are not returning back to the Islanders, organization in any way, shape, or form at this point. And it's not like, oh man, this is great. It's opened up the avenue for so many different players to come in and to make an impact. I mean, those are, you lost here a bottom pairing defenseman who was really, for the most part, like a 7th or 8th defenseman who was a healthy scratch most times. The only reason he saw any minutes was because we had sometimes 2 or 3 defensemen injured. And you lost 2 fourth line guys in Cal Clutterbuck and Matt Martin. It's not like you're going to be replacing them with the next greatest thing or anything like that. These are all bottom of the barrel type players that you're just going to replace one little part of the cog in the machine for another. They're not going to make much of an impact. So,
and we're over the salary cap right now.
Yeah, that's that too.
I mean, something's
going to be done though, right? They have until the start of the actual season to become cap compliant. Something's going to happen. Somebody's going to get waived. Somebody's going to get waived and sent down to the A to free up that cap space. I think the only thing they're going to do is just maybe play a man short on the roster.
Or does Oliver Wahlstrom just get dealt?
I just don't see how he has any value.
Maybe a 7th round pick.
That would be a Lou masterclass. You talk about a guy who
turn a first rounder into a 7th rounder in just a couple of short years.
And now again, I will say this: as much I will be fair, consistent, and honest. I don't give Lou Lamoriello credit for the Noah Dobson selection because he was only the GM for like 3 days before he was selected. And I'm not going to give him any sort of criticism for the Oliver Wahlstrom selection again, because he doesn't deserve any credit for Noah Dobson, only there for 3 days. Dobson and Wahlstrom are in the same exact draft class. I'm not going to give him any sort of, criticism again for selecting Wahlstrom.
No.
Yeah. But it's simple as that. Islanders offseason is over. It's funny.
Regular season's just about over.
Is it over before it starts, Grump?
Where are we going? I mean, that's a realistic question. Where are we going? At least we had a first-round draft pick this year. Okay. I mean, if that's what your best hope is, hey, at least we didn't trade away a first-round draft pick. I mean, we're really setting the bar pretty low.
We're going nowhere. And I think when you look at the team, we are exactly what we've been for the last few years. We haven't made this year's roster. How much different is this year's upcoming roster than last year's roster? Almost virtually identical again.
Anthony Duclair.
And now you're going to have, instead of maybe a healthy scratch Simon Holmstrom to the end of the year, he'll be starting every night. That's your roster. You essentially moved in, hey, Simon Holmstrom, you were a healthy scratch a little bit at the end of the year. Sometimes Pierre Engvall was a healthy scratch. Well, now you're going to have one of those guys who maybe were missing some time as a healthy scratch. You're going to be both every nighters, and Hudson Fashing maybe plays every night. And now you're in a spot to where, okay, gotcha, we brought in Anthony Duclair. That's it. We didn't have anybody on the defensive side of the puck. Our goaltenders are what they are. They're very, very solid. I think, one of the better goaltending tandems in the league, probably top 5. Our defense is, I'd say, steady, and our forward group doesn't score enough goals. So we didn't make any adjustments to the team really, besides one player that we brought in, which was Anthony Duclair. Might I add, again, we'll wait to see how that pans out. This guy is on his 9th team in 11 years. I don't know. Usually if you're very valuable, they're not just like, get rid of him at the end of every single season. His 9th team in 11 years. I think he'll be good. I think this will probably be the most talented first line that we've seen for the Islanders in 5+ years, maybe 10 years, Grump. But I just, first time, 9 teams in 11 years, Grump. That's just, yeah. I was about to say, I do want to go ahead and jump into this, right? When we look at some of the older teams in the league, this has been something that the Islanders have been here for in a bit. They always are one of the oldest average teams on opening night roster, and usually at the end of the season. And this year, it's no different. It's nice to see our good old buddies, the Nashville Predators, and Barry and the Vets are up there as well. Barry in Nashville has the 3rd oldest team in the NHL, but do not fret, Islander fans. We are the 4th oldest team in the NHL.
And we actually got younger with the subtraction of Martin, Bertuzzo, and Clutterbuck. That made us younger.
Think about that. Still, and again, like with Edmonton, right? Like, Edmonton's older. They made it to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Okay.
That
Edmonton,
is true.
Edmonton has McDavid and Draisaitl, Bouchard. Those are, they're big time players. And how old's Connor McDavid now? 27, 28. But let's be honest, he's at the top of his skills right now. It's not like he's close to the end of his career.
Exactly, and like they wanted to, and that team, it's pretty much, what does Connor McDavid do? When Draisaitl plays, what does he do? When Zach Hyman does something, what does he do? Just in general, the team as a whole is run through a few players. What does Evan Bouchard do? What do some of the big name guys do? And everybody else is a player that just has to be even or status quo. You can't go ahead and hemorrhage goals. You can't go ahead and hemorrhage opportunities. Stay on par and let the top tier players score goals, rack up points, and give us the lead. And you are a steady Eddie defenseman. That's what they are. And you've got the change there of the head coach in Knobloch. All of the talent they've had was able to accumulate and show legitimate results. This past year.
But can anyone say that their offseason was not? I feel they're probably favorites for the Cup this year. Would you not say? I love what they did in the offseason. I really do.
I like the fact that they got Matthew Savoy for nothing. Nothing.
Even if he doesn't play for them. Bringing Enrique back, bringing in Arvidsson. Look at the guys they brought in. These are guys ready to contribute right now.
I'm talking about their team is structured to compete right now, Grump. But they also looked at towards a few, because guess what? They're going to have to come to a point, one point or another, where what do you think Draisaitl's going to do? What do you think his future is? There was a lot of grumbles about what his future looked like. They're already trying to look for, okay, in the finals, I can't have you putting up goose eggs, Draisaitl. We're trying to win a Stanley Cup. We can't have our second best player do nothing.
Well, the best player did nothing either in the finals.
That's
the best player did nothing in the finals either.
Are you nuts? Are you nuts? Are you nuts?
Nothing. Absolutely.
You're wrong. Did you forget what he put up in the finals, Grump?
He had some secondary assists in games they won 8-1. He wasn't. Here's the thing. Connor McDavid disappeared in the finals. That's not to minimize the player he is.
You are
Don't single out Draisaitl. Don't single out Draisaitl. McDavid disappeared too. McDavid disappeared as well as Draisaitl. They both did.
What's disappearing? How many points needs to be disappearing for you? What do you consider disappearing?
I don't know.
In a 7-game series,
3 or 4 points when you win a game 8-1, those are nothing points. He had the game on his stick in the finals. He had the game on his stick in game 7, and he just could not produce.
How many points?
I'm not trying to minimize, but he was nowhere near the player that he was in the opening 3 rounds of playoffs and the player that we saw in the finals. Totally different.
He had points in 4 of 7 games in the Stanley Cup Finals, and he had 3 goals. Hold on. You let me finish. He had 3 goals and 8 assists. He had 11 points in 7 games, and that's doing nothing in the playoffs. And guess what? He had 3 points in the 4 losses they had. Oh, gotcha. So even when his team was losing games, he was producing and scoring points. He was almost a point a game when they were losing. But guess what? In the 3 wins they had, Grumpy, right? If he had 3 goals and 8 assists in the 3 games that they won, Grumpy, he had 3 goals and 5 assists. It was like they didn't win unless he put up points. And he had to put up
4 points in the 8-1 game. He had 4 points in the 8-1 game. Just stop.
He
was not as good in the finals as he was the rest of the playoffs. He was not even close to it. Had the impact. He just didn't. And he was fucking invisible. Absolutely invisible in game 7.
When they won 5-3, he put up. Hey, coming from a guy who didn't watch the game. You didn't watch the games. Remember that?
Game 7, and he looked like dog shit. He looked like a choker. He was a choker.
You're wrong.
He choked it away when it mattered the most.
My God. Wrong. Here's the thing. In their game that they won 5-3 against the mighty Florida Panthers, he had 4 points in that game. Were all those garbage points, Grumpy? He had 4 of the team's 5. He had 4 points in the team's 5 goals. Let me think about that. He had 4 points of their 5 goals, and they won.
You want to suck on his dick? Go ahead. I'm not going to. You want to start slobbering on his knob? You want to start slobbering on his knob? Go ahead. I'm not doing that. As the best player in the league,
he fucking was invisible in the finals, and that's just a lie.
He absolutely did not.
That is a blatant lie. I want to go on the record.
In game 7, choked him away.
I want to go on the record and say that this ridiculous viewpoint. I want to go on the record and say,
you want to jump on Draisaitl, who was injured? Go right ahead.
He wasn't injured,
and he wasn't injured.
He wasn't injured, and I'm going to go on the record.
Couldn't get the job done.
I want to go on the record and say this. This ridiculous and lunatic type take by Grumpy is only his and probably shared by maybe an astro speck of the population of NHL supporters, because anybody with a brain and eyes noticed that he performed when they required him to, and 11 points in a 7-game series in the Stanley Cup Finals is absolutely production.
I've already tuned you
and
out.
All be That's fine.
I don't give a shit. They had to load up the roster so he could potentially win a Stanley Cup. They had to load it up this offseason. And I think they did a great job. I think their offseason was good because guess what? He wasn't good enough to put them over the top. He's a fucking ham and egger, and he gets what he gets. So they had to load up with the Victor Arvidssons and the Adam Henriques, bring them back. They had to bring everybody back and get new firepower in there. I don't blame them. It's a smart thing to do so they could bail out when you got a guy like Connor McDavid choking in the biggest moment.
God. Grumpy, what it is you want to have.
What it is he's not all that. He's great. He's a great player. He's the best player in the league. But you know what? He's going to have to be much better in the finals.
You're going to stop interrupting?
No.
This is the thing. You don't want the image of the great old Mario Lemieux.
He's not Mario Lemieux. Anyone who has a fucking brain, as opposed to someone who never actually saw Mario play, that's you, will know that Mario Lemieux is way better than Connor McDavid. Way better. Way better.
You're ridiculous. You're way better. Anyway, I don't want to get stuck in this. I don't want to get stuck in
the finals.
Okay. Yeah, 11 points in 7 games is not disappearing in the finals. You may be the only person on planet Earth who watches hockey and says that.
He had 4 points.
And he had 4 points when they won 5-3.
He had so many opportunities he just didn't finish. He disappeared. He choked. Yeah. He choked. It's okay.
You are the only person who shares that opinion. Everybody in the comments, if you think McDavid's a choker in 11 points in 7 games.
I said he choked in that series.
I know.
I said he choked in that series. That's what I said.
If you think he choked in that series and 11 points in 7 games in a Stanley Cup Finals as a choke artist.
That's right.
Leave that.
You want to cherry pick the stats.
Can you please let me finish the comment?
I don't want to repeat the same stupid shit that you failed on
Can
when they
you
lost the cup.
please? I
We
just
don't
want
need to
anybody
talk
who
about that
supports
again.
what Grumpy's
Move
saying,
on.
comment it in the comments
Move
below. I
on.
want to see how inaccurate that is because I don't think anybody
Move
believes that.
along.
You're the one who brings up Edmonton. I wanted to bring and talk about the
I
Islanders.
said Edmonton did a great job, and you went in the offseason. That's all I said.
I said I liked what they did to bring in young guys to augment
Then
the
you
team.
brought Draisaitl, how he failed. He was hurt.
Well,
He was hurt.
Okay, yeah, sure.
He was hurt.
Yeah,
He
you must have a love for that fella. That with how much you defend.
I just think you're minimizing how good he is. When he doesn't produce, neither does the other guy. That's all.
How many points did Draisaitl have in the finals? Do you know that?
I don't know. I have no idea. 1 or 2? Not many. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He was hurt. But the other guy could. The other guy had the puck.
David had 11. The other guy had 2.
I couldn't get the job done.
Shit.
Couldn't get the job done. An all-time great gets the job done in that situation. He didn't. That's all. That's all.
I'm sorry.
And I still think they're the favorites for the cup this year. I honestly feel they're the favorite cups. I love what they did in the offseason. I think they should absolutely be the favorites coming out of the West. I really believe that.
We'll just agree to disagree on that. That's fine. Again, the stats prove me right, but that's fine. Anyway, I want to get here talking about the oldest teams in the NHL because this is, hey, the Islanders have been up here for a while. And guess what? We happen to see one of our Metro fellow friends on this list who's always up there for one of the oldest teams in the NHL, to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Why, of course, they join us in this such a great, illustrious company here. The Islanders and the Penguins up there. I'd say, right, for both of those teams in the Metro. And now Carolina, I'm shocked Carolina's as old as they are. But I guess that's, you got guys like Brett Burns, you got some of those older goaltenders that definitely brings the age up.
And look at the guys they brought in, right? They bring in Gotcha Spare. He's not a spring chicken anymore.
Yeah.
I think Carolina, like I said, is Carolina as good as they were last year? I don't think so. But you know what? Every year I doubt them. They just seem to get better and better. I still think they were going to be one of the top 3 teams in the Metro Division.
I'll put it to you like this.
And they're still younger than we are.
Every time I see the Islanders on this list, I just get caught shaking my head because we have so many guys now that are starting to kick in with these longer term deals that are going to be here for multiple more years. And we're already the projected 4th oldest team on opening night. What are we expecting to do with that? Do we have, and hell, I don't think Pittsburgh has a shot in hell of winning a Stanley Cup, but Pittsburgh's elite talent is much better than the elite talent for the Islanders, right? Crosby is miles better than any player, any skater on the Islanders roster. Would you agree with that? I still think that's the case.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know. I don't know about Pittsburgh. I'm more worried about Washington, to be honest with you.
Okay. No. What I was saying was Pittsburgh has no shot of winning a cup, but at least right for their age, they have much higher talent, right? You can get away with having a little bit of an older team if you have unbelievable Hall of Fame caliber talent, like Tampa Bay that's on this list. Tampa Bay has no shot in hell of winning the Stanley Cup. Tampa Bay's done. Tampa Bay's run was a great one. They went to 3 Stanley Cups in a row. They won 2. Guess what? Tampa Bay has no shot in hell of winning a Stanley Cup this year. Absolutely zero. You can mark that down now. Tampa Bay has no shot of winning a Stanley Cup. Their team continues to age and age and age, and Father Time is undefeated. That team is not the same team it was 3 years ago that won the cup. Just not. That's what happens. You have to pay all these people, and the guys you attach yourself to are great players, but eventually they get older and their production starts to drop.
Right. I think Tampa's done a nice job the last few years. I mean, think about it. They've been up against the cap year after year after year, and they've done a pretty good job of divorcing themselves from certain guys who are ready to get paid. They get rid of them maybe a little bit too soon as opposed to a little bit too late. Stamkos is the latest example of that. I don't think that contract is going to age well with Nashville. They certainly. I mean, I don't even know what the numbers are. I really miss cap friendly, by the way, just to let you know. So I don't know the exact numbers, but they just determined that they could not pay him what he felt he deserved, and more power to him. He gets the money in Nashville, and they have to fill another hole. But they are another team Islanders like dealing away first round pick year after year after year, but they were actually winning cups and contending for cups every single year, as opposed to contending for, an Eastern Conference playoff final run
Run.
3 or 4 years ago. It was a little bit different for them. So I understand why they did it. You understand why Pittsburgh did the same thing when they were chasing cups, when they have Crosby and Malkin and Letang and the like. The Islanders weren't in that boat, and I always felt that was a mistake by Lamoriello. The team was never good enough, and you kept trading good after bad, and we've seen what happened with the Islanders, unfortunately.
Here's the thing, right? Stamkos, he signed a 4-year contract worth $8 million a year. That's why they didn't. He's 34 years old. They didn't want to have 37, 36, and 38-year-old Steven Stamkos on that roster, making $8 million a year. Simple as that. And remember, Tampa also traded away Sergachev. I don't know if you mentioned that as well when you're talking about it. So yeah. Stamkos, very solid player. He's not at this point worth 4 years and $8 million per. He's not. And Sergachev, right? Very good player. Snapped his leg in half, broke his leg. I'm being a little hyperbolic, but he broke his leg earlier on last year. He came back, tried to get it in for the postseason. Still was kind of a little banged up. You just tell by the way he was moving on. It didn't look like he was 100%. But as a defenseman, that is a top pairing defenseman across, I don't know, probably 90% of the teams in the NHL. So you lost a guy who was, I'd say Steven Stamkos, still a hell of a player. He was almost a point-a-game guy. And you lost a guy like Sergachev, and yet you did bring in Gensel, right? So that's a plus. I think, younger version there for Stamkos. But I think defensively you struggle a bit. And Vasilevsky didn't look good last year. I don't know. Maybe he bounces back, right? That could be the one. That could be the one. The one exception is if Vasilevsky bounces back and has a fantastic season. But I think
that Vasilevsky, when they play really poorly defensively in front of him, he give up 7-8 goals a night, and then the next night they play a little bit better defensively and he'll shut a team out. Yep. I'm not worried about Vasilevsky. Here's the thing: Tampa's not winning the cup. They might not even make the playoffs this year. Who knows?
Detroit, right, Grumpy? Detroit's finally punching their ticket and making the playoffs this year, baby. The Detroit Red Wings return back to playoff glory.
Yeah, I don't think Detroit's making the playoffs. But you never know. It doesn't matter. You're right. Tampa Bay's not winning a cup. Of all these teams that you're looking at here who are 29 and older, Edmonton is the only one, in my opinion, that has a legit shot of winning the Stanley Cup next year.
Yep, and let me scroll down here so we can see that last one. And then Toronto is also on this list too. I'm not sure if that changes your opinion. Do you think Toronto is a real cup contender?
I think Toronto will be better this year.
New coach.
I like some of the moves they made in the offseason to actually get defensemen who know how to play defense.
Worth putting up here. Thank you, Anthony Rizzi, for mentioning this. When are we doing the Fantasy Football League? We are going to be having our fantasy football draft. It will be either not this Tuesday or Wednesday, but next Tuesday or Wednesday. So the first game, we're going to let the last game of preseason finish up. And then
you realize the last game of preseason is tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yes. Then there's a week off in between games.
Okay, gotcha. It will be after that week off in between games. So it will be that Tuesday or Wednesday. I think that's the first week of September. So that Tuesday or Wednesday.
Let's make it September 3rd because I have a bunch of drafts going Monday and then also on Wednesday.
Okay. Well, we're going to be having the draft on Tuesday or Wednesday. If you are interested and you want to have a fun time competing in the Islanders Never Say Die podcast fantasy football league, it's free, right? There's never any fee to enter. It's just for fun. It's for bragging rights and to talk some shit to fellow Islander fans and listeners of the show. Make sure you send me a direct message on Twitter or Facebook. I will actually be checking them, I promise. Or you can email us. And the email address for me is IslanderFansUnited@gmail.com. And I'll put that up on screen so we could see that a little bit later. But that is the email there that you could send that to. But I just wanted to mention that. So thank you, Anthony, for bringing that up there. But yes, we will have a fantasy football league just like last year. Islanders, though.
Who won last? Do you remember who won last year?
No, who won?
I don't remember. I don't think it wasn't me.
I thought the way you were mentioning it, you'd be like, "Yeah,
I
won
honestly
last year."
do not remember who won last year.
I
don't think it was me. I don't think it was.
I don't know who won. So whoever won, make sure you message us so you could get some. You can get some.
I'm sure it wasn't Drew either.
Anyway, there is something else I wanted to go ahead and mention to you there, Grumpy. There's a podcast called the NHL Wraparound Podcast, Grumpy, and it has a little familiar face on it. Neil Smith, Grumpy, old GM there for the Islanders, was talking about the Islanders offseason this year, and he brought up some really interesting points. Now, these are points that we've mentioned multiple I'd say even for some of these we've been talking about for years.
I would say there's one you've already talked about it on this show.
Okay, well let's listen to it, Grumpy. Let's listen to Neil Smith here, Grump.
Oh no, the Lou Lamoriello has a reputation going way back to the Devils of being very conservative in the things that he does in the off season and at the deadline, and he isn't one of these guys that, as Brian Burke once said, July 1st and the trading deadline is at 2 times that general managers lose their minds. And Lou certainly never loses his mind in the offseason or at the trading deadline. Anthony Duclair signing is going to be very interesting. He was on the Quebec Ramparts, which was the team owned and coached by Patrick Waugh. Patrick Waugh was, from what we understand, very instrumental in wanting to get Anthony Duclair signed for the Islanders. Duclair was able to get Lou to give him a 4-year deal, which I was stunned at because, as you said in the open of the Islanders segment here, Anthony Duclair is on his 9th team in 11 years. Well, you know what? There's something going on. If every time you go to a team, they don't re-sign you, they move you on to the next team. I don't know what it is. I don't know the young man, but there's something going on. And so we'll see on the island if that's a good signing. We know that he can score. We know that he's good offensively.
Pause that, please.
Apparently, from what I hear, they're going to put him right on that top line.
Pause that, please.
What was that, Crump? Sure.
I think that's a really good point that Neil Smith mentioned, that how many teams, and you mentioned it earlier in the show, how many teams he's played for. And what does it say? It should be a red flag.
Yeah. And I think we talked really quickly. I think we talked a little bit about this when he signed, but we really didn't, I guess, take a deep dive into it. But he brought it up, and I think now's a good time maybe to discuss.
Well, that was 3 months ago. So, but it should be a little bit of a red flag why he cannot manage to stay with a team more than a year or two. And the team that he first, his first team is the one he played with the longest. Every year he's gone and somewhere else, or he gets traded midseason, or, this, that, or the other. But no one seems to want him long term. And what Neil Smith is saying, is this the type of guy you want to give a 4-year deal to?
Yeah.
And I mean, I felt like the money wasn't that much. I don't think they could afford to cut bait with him after a year.
No.
But you wonder if he's a problem in the locker room. That's what I'm thinking. And I mean, I think he's kind of intimating it. Maybe he's a problem in the room, and the Islanders do have good veteran presence, but you're losing some veteran guys too. So could that be a problem as the season progresses? I don't know.
Yeah. So the team's culture is important. So the way that the team meshes is important. Immediately makes me think of guys sometimes unjustly get named as locker room cancers, sometimes rightfully so, sometimes wrongfully so on that side. And sometimes guys just have a really short shelf life. We talk about like head coaches like John Tortorella has a very short shelf life. Good coach, very short shelf life. They'll sign a guy like him Torts to a 4-year contract, knowing that he'll probably only be there for 2 years until he gets fired. It's a little different when you're a player, right? They can't just fire you when you're a player the same way they could for a head coach because of the cap implications if they were to, waive you or anything like that. The important thing that I think to take into account with this is for Duclair, Vanek was another one of those guys that moved quite frequently at every single trade deadline. But
No.
the difference is teams are trying to lock, I feel like, Thomas Vanek up to a long-term contract, but he didn't. I don't.
True.
Vanek
Vanek didn't play for 9 teams in his career.
Vanek, do you not remember how many teams Thomas Vanek played for?
He played for Buffalo for who knows how many years till he was a UFA. He was going to be a UFA. They traded him to us. We traded him to Montreal. He left there and he went to Minnesota. And later he played maybe for Detroit. He certainly didn't play for 9 teams in 11 years.
Oh, here you go. Don't worry. I've got to pull up for you, Grumpy. So he played his early career with the Buffalo Sabres from 2006 to 2014.
So that's 8 years with one team.
Okay. Listen, I'm not saying it's an apples to apples comparison.
There's no comparison.
I'm saying guys can be moved, and just because guys are moved often doesn't mean that it always means that they're a problem. Now, I don't think he is comparable to Thomas Vanek. There were no teams offering him 4-year deals like the Islanders were. I don't think there was any team that was out there offering him a 4-year contract, just looking historically at him. But he played, right? Thomas Vanek from 2006 to 2014 with Buffalo. Then he played with the Islanders in the 13-14 season. He played with Montreal, so there's our third team. He played for the Minnesota Wild for 2 years. Then he played for the Detroit Red Wings for a year. Then he played for the Florida Panthers that same year. Then he played for the Vancouver Canucks that year and the Columbus Blue Jackets that year.
How old was he then?
He was towards the tail end of his career.
Okay, there's a total difference. Anthony Duclair has only been in the league 11 years. He's played on 9 teams in 11 years. In 11 years, and 2 of them, you're talking about Vanek. He played on 2 teams.
Vanek only played 14 years. Vanek only played 14 years in the NHL. Just so you know, the longest tenure he played 9 total years with Buffalo, I guess, between trades and how often he was there. He spent 2 years with Minnesota, 2 years with Detroit, 1 year with Montreal, 1 year with the Islanders.
Okay, he played 2 months for Montreal, and he played 6 months for the Islanders. They were both in the same year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's kind of, he didn't play a full year in either stop. He was traded. The Islanders wanted to sign him long term. He didn't. He was going to Minnesota, period. Everyone knew it. So they traded him to Montreal. That has nothing to do with Anthony Duclair. And here's the thing, Anthony Duclair didn't put up anywhere near the numbers that Thomas Vanek ever did. There is no comparison between these two guys in any way, shape, or form.
Again, if you let me get to my point, I was going to say that as well. Just because you're moved consistently doesn't mean that you're a locker room cancer. Thomas Vanek was moved consistently. He was not a locker room cancer. People wanted to lock him up long term. There haven't been people trying to lock up and hammering down Anthony Duclair's door, giving him multiple year contracts, trying to lock him in. They just haven't been. Right. So I think there is a worry potentially for locker room cancer being listed on Anthony Duclair. It maybe is a problem if you've been with 9 teams in 11 years. I'm just saying, being with 8 teams like Vanek was over a 14-year time period. Well, the thing is, it wasn't like teams were, oh gosh, we don't want to offer him a long-term deal. There were multiple teams trying to offer Thomas Vanek a long-term deal, but Thomas Vanek, and when he signed his deal, Minnesota dealt him. It's just like, so they're different stories, even if you bounce between multiple teams. You have not seen a guy like Duclair say, hey, we're offering you a 4-year contract. This is the longest contract he signed in the NHL, I believe. This is the 4-year deal.
Yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, and I'm going to confirm that real quick. But again, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, you have to worry a little bit that you've been with 9 teams in 11 years, right? Maybe 2 teams in a short time period or 3 teams. You're like, okay, maybe explain it to me. 9 teams in 11 years. I don't know how you can explain that. Just don't. Unless you're just like, hey, I was constantly just going wherever I can get the most in a 1-year deal, and then I just was saying let's roll free agency every year, but players don't do that. So I don't know. That there maybe is a problem. I don't know.
It's not like teams who are really good are trading for him as the final piece to put them over the top. I mean, he's played for San Jose.
The few clips we watched for him that Phil wanted to show was just all him cherry picking every single time, hanging out by the blue line, trying to jump the gun.
I mean, here's the thing. I think he will. I think he'll give some goal scoring on the first line, but it's not enough to move the needle. In my opinion, it's not. But let's listen to what else Neil Smith has to say.
Absolutely.
And TJ, when I put my hand up, it means
And
I'm not going to be looking at you, Grump. Okay, so
see what the chemistry has. As you said, their losses are veterans. Clutterbuck, Matt Martin were great on that fourth line. They've slowed down, but they were the real intimidators of that team. Those two guys. Clutterbuck's forechecking was incredible. Matt Martin was their tough guy that could hit you, and he could also fight. And
I do really quickly want to mention something about that. Matt Martin didn't really offer a lot on the ice except a physical presence. Let me ask you this. If a team were to take liberties with the Islanders and get a little physical on the ice and start bullying the Islanders, who steps up and answers the bell? Is it Anders Lee that does that now? Like, in all seriousness, who does that? If they've got a guy like, hey, we're playing the Rangers, or oh gosh, here's Rempe out there on the ice, and he's starting to just impose his will because we don't have anybody that could go ahead and push back on him. Who answers the bell for when teams try to do that to us?
I don't think we have anyone. But Matt Martin wasn't that guy either at the end.
He would get in fights. You're wrong.
He hasn't had a fight in how many years?
Oh, that's wrong.
Okay, but he's not been a fighter. He just hasn't. The older you get, the less willing you are to fight. He's not been a fighter. Anders Lee's been more of a fighter in recent seasons than he has. And he's not even a guy who plays. He's not even a guy who plays every day. I do think they're going to miss Cal Clutterbuck, though. I thought Cal played pretty well last year. And, I mean, was he not an assistant captain even last year?
Matt Martin got into 5 fights last year.
Okay.
I'm not saying again like fights happen often, but he got into 5 fights last year.
I honestly couldn't remember any of them.
Yeah, he got into 5 fights. He fought Rempe on one of them. Got pummeled by Rempe.
Oh, that's right. He got beat up.
Well, my thing is though, who's the nice guy who does that? When that's my point. Is Anders Lee now our de facto fighter? See, in all seriousness, a real question. If a team gets physical out there and takes a run at one of your players, what do? It's not like you got Matty Martz or Cal Clutterbuck to mix it up. Is Casey Zizekas going to be throwing the fist? Is it going to be Brock Nelson getting punched in the face? Like what's the
Brock
answer?
Nelson's not going to be getting into any fights.
That's why I said punched in the face. He doesn't actually throw the punches. He
doesn't even go near any of that physicality. Just backs away. Maybe he'll be off the team by then.
Oh God! But that's a serious point, though. Who's going to offer the physicality for the team that we've had before? That's always been a staple in our team.
Both those guys remain unsigned. The other guy that remains unsigned is a defenseman, Bortuzzo, who they got from the St. Louis Blues. So those guys are just hanging out there. I don't see this team having improved at all. I mean, I don't think they've moved. I think they're stuck in park.
Jesus.
Is that not fair though?
Stuck in park. It is, but I'm like, man, that you talk about an apt way to put it. Stuck in park.
Okay. I think they marginally improved the offense a little bit with Duclair. I think their defense has taken a step back. I think you've seen Pellick and Pulak regress a little bit.
Yeah.
I think Scott Mayfield, let's see what he's got coming back from another foot injury.
Yeah.
I think the goaltending, who knows?
Goaltending a little bit better this year than last year, right?
It should be. But I just don't see a whole lot of improvement from the Islanders. I think that's fair. I mean, there's nothing moved the needle. Like I said, you look at teams like Edmonton or a team like Washington. They at least tried to make moves to make the team better. Does Anthony Duclair really make the team really appreciably better? I don't think so.
I think he's a better option than whatever we were rolling out on the first line last year. That being said, with the age of the team, there's a lot of players that are going to be taking steps backwards. And that's the real problem. You made a little addition, and I think Duclair is an addition, right? To be very clear, I think it is. We should, as fans, question why has this guy we gave a 4-year contract, which I confirmed is the longest contract he's ever received in his professional career, who has been bouncing on 1-year contract after 1-year contract amongst a plethora of teams. He's been on 9 teams in 11 years. Why do we give him a 4-year contract? Could we have done it for 2 years or maybe 3 years? That would have been maybe a little better. The cap hit's not very much, but hey, is there maybe an issue with him that he has been on 9 teams in 11 years?
Maybe it's the fact that he's goal hanging all the time and he doesn't play any defense in the zone. I could see where that would send a coach off the chain.
Absolutely.
Going, no. I mean, maybe that's part of it too. And can you imagine if you have to have Matt Barzell and Bo Horvat doing all the defensive checking assignments?
Because you got somebody
cherry picking. I mean, I'd much rather have Matt Barzell cherry picking than Anthony Duclair.
Amen to that. I'd rather have him fighting for the puck along the corners, and I'd rather have Matt Barzal streaking up the ice.
I mean, we don't know, and I'm not going to bury Anthony Duclair, but not yet anyway. But he's okay. I never thought he was anything special. Phil never thought he was anything special either until the Islanders signed, and then he's the greatest thing ever. So.
Yeah, that's called the laundry boys, Grumpy. But I will say this: on
a good team,
he makes us marginally better. On a good team, he's a bottom 6 guy, right?
I was going to say. On a good team, is he a first line player? No.
If you were trading, hey, I'm in a postseason, and we are the Edmonton Oilers, or hey, we're the Florida Panthers. Guess what? That guy goes on your third line. That's just where he is. He's not playing a top 6 role. But yes, so we're stuck in Park, per Neil Smith, and I think he's right. But let's continue.
To be honest with you,
is Lou still living off 2020 and 2021, where the club made the?
Yes, Grump.
I think Lou's living off of 2003, the last time the Devils won a cup.
But
you realize it's been 21 years since Lou Lamoriello has won a Stanley Cup, and he has not been out of the league for 1 year in that time. Just
by pure luck and roll of the dice, you should have a pretty decent chance of maybe winning a cup in that span.
If you're that great, if you're the greatest general manager of all time, just not. Sorry.
Yeah.
Conference finals in those 2 years, but they did it in truncated seasons. So they didn't have to play 82 games. And it just seems that we have seen the same thing now for the last 3 years. And if any team really needed to make some sort of splash, and I'm not talking about Pierre Engvall signing long-term or Anthony Duclair as he had done this year. I mean, it just doesn't appear that these are moves that are going to elevate a club that, yes, they're gold.
So anyway, I wanted to stop there because, my gosh, how often have we talked about the back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals runs happening in truncated seasons and shortened seasons, to where one time we weren't going to even make it into the postseason because we were on the outside looking in, but because they had the bubble, it allowed us to earn our spot into the postseason. And then after we had like a break of a few months, everybody had a chance to get revved up and their energy back to play that trot style of hockey. We were able to make into the Eastern Conference Finals. And the year after that, we played 50 games. So we didn't have to play an entire season worth of hockey with an age group. 54. So we were able to 54 games. And we were able to make the postseason and make a little bit of run in the Eastern Conference Finals. We've never done this in an 82-game season. We've never had postseason success under Lou Lamoriello, not once in an 82-game season. The first year we made it right. We did beat, was it Pittsburgh in the first round of the postseason, and then we lost right after that and got swept by the Hurricanes. So we swept Pittsburgh, and then we got swept by the Hurricanes. That was the most success we've had in a postseason under Lou Lamoriello in the 82-game regular season.
You ever hear that sound, the hurricane warning? That's every time we play Carolina, we just get blown out to sea. That's just what happens.
I'm worried about a hurricane inbound.
Now, I just want to say, the trot system is too hard to play with an older team over 82 games. That's not the system they run under Patrick Roy. So I'm be interested to see what happens from the get-go this season. Could it go really well? Hopefully. Could it go really badly? Maybe. But we're going to find out. But it is a different season. And I think the team had to get younger. I mean, Neil Smith made the point, well, you're losing Clutterbuck, you're losing Martin, Bortuzzo, they're all veterans. Well, with the exception of maybe Clutterbuck, they can't keep up anymore. Those guys in the modern NHL standards, those guys just couldn't keep up anymore. And it was time to move on from them and give younger guys a shot. I just don't think we have the younger guys who are good enough to elevate the team per se. They're maybe you're hoping just as good as the other guys were. And I think that's problematic.
And the team has gotten older. The players who contribute, you have some players that are in their prime, right? Matt Barzali's in his prime. Oh, Horvat's in his prime. Bach Nelson's past his prime, right? We could say last year, at the tail end of the year, he kind of started to show some of the signs of cracking. Do you think he'll be better this year than he was last year and 2 years ago?
Probably not.
I don't think, right, in a realistic scenario, probably not. Do you think, I think Noah Dobson's in his prime. As much as I love Noah, do I think offensively he can have more output than 72 points in a season? I don't know. I don't think so.
Depends on the system. It depends on the system.
Under this Patrick Waugh system, could you see him putting up more than 72 points in a single season? I think there's no way in hell that's possible.
I think that he either ran out of gas or was injured the last quarter of the season, because he was putting up big numbers last year, and then all of a sudden he just kind of fell apart. And I think he was injured or he hit a wall. I don't know. But I could see him putting up those points again this year. I really could.
Yeah. I hope so, right? Then he's going to get, you talk about a guy who's going to get paid. The $10 million man, Grumpy, back-to-back seasons of 70-plus points. Yeah, he's going to get paid. He'll get paid $10+ million. Simple as that. And the $10 million man legacy lives on. But let's listen to the rest of this here. It's got about a minute and 30 seconds left.
Goaltending and their defense, it's reliable. It's decent. But the forwards, they're not fast. They're not
really quickly. I'm sorry. I hate to pause it again. Our goaltending is much more than reliable / decent. Our goaltending, I think, is top 5 in the NHL. I think Sorokin's a hell of a goalie. Had a little bit of an off year last year, but he's an absolute, gem in net. And I think Varlamov is a really good backup in the NHL. So I think our goaltending is more than reliable / decent. So I think this is a mischaracterization by Vic.
Creative. Duclair brings a little bit of speed, but I see a lot of the same from this club.
Absolutely. And they can't score. That's been their problem for the last 2 years. They can't score goals. They're not good on the power play. Anthony Duclair will be a slight upgrade, yes, offensively. Lou made a great trade when he got Bo Horvat. He sort of stole him from Vancouver. The interesting part when you think about it, and I know we're going to get to Vancouver in another show, Vancouver has gone up. They're better, even though, and I'm not saying they're better because they don't have Horvat, but they're better even though they don't have Horvat. And Horvat's a good player. I see him play all the time, and he's a really good player. But and Lou made a great trade. He stole him. But I don't see this team. They squeaked in the last 2 years. Squeaked in. Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh gave up on the 2 years ago, and then this year wasn't close, and then and the Islanders were able to squeak in. We'll see if they can do that again. The good news for the Islanders, Vic, the division's not very good, and they could easily be third in the division again, simply because of who's we're going to talk about behind them.
Now, I do disagree a little bit. I do think our division is unbelievably weak and easy on that side, but I will say, I think, right, the Devils probably take a step back in the right direction this year, right? They're not going to be as bad as they were last year.
Devils step up. Even if Carolina slips up back a little bit, they're still going to be better than the Islanders.
The Rangers are still better than the Islanders, right? So we could say probably that. I think the best we could finish is 4th.
That's what I say too. And I think Washington is going to give us a run for the money for that 4th spot. I just want to say one thing about Bo Horvat. He brings up, Vancouver, ever since they traded him, boy, they've been a really good team. And I'm not saying it's because of Bo Horvat, but he might as well be saying that. What was the big thing about Bo Horvat? He wanted to get paid, period, end of sentence, end of story. He didn't give a shit about anything else. And I like Bo Horvat. But if he's not thinking about team per se, and it's about getting that contract, he was here, 3 days, and he signs an 8-year contract extension. It's like, okay, I'm about the money. And I like Bo Horvat, but is it possible that Bo Horvat, I'm just fat, dumb, and happy. I'm getting paid. I'm happy.
I tell you one thing, that's something you worry about down the road from a guy like that. I think he's effort guy. I have no problem with his effort. If
Yeah,
I
me
do,
neither.
trust me, you'll hear it from me because I'll be critical of him. And I thought he outperformed what my expectations were from him drastically last season.
But
So
if
I'm not going
it,
to say a bad thing about him right now.
again, I'm talking about in the room, where if he's complaining all the time about his contract in Vancouver, it brings the whole team down, right?
Could be, yeah.
And has he
But
done
that's like
anything?
a locker room cancer, even though it's like an isolated instance, but that is a locker room cancer too.
And here's the thing. Again, this is just pure conjecture on my part. I have no idea. I'm just throwing shit up against the wall, hoping something sticks, or not hoping anything sticks. But if that's just the way he is as a player, is he a guy that elevates the Islanders? No.
Probably.
And I like him, but he's not a guy who's going to elevate anybody on this team. And that's, I think, maybe his biggest issue. But the more you look at it, that absolutely was a steal of a deal for Lou Lamoriello. The only thing I didn't want to give up was that first round pick. The other guys I was fine with, but that I didn't want to trade that first round pick because, we need young talent in the organization. But it worked out, I guess, in the short run. We made the playoffs 1 year with him. No, actually back-to-back years, right? We made the playoffs back-to-back years with him.
He
there.
won 3 playoff games in 2 years. That's pretty good. He's picking up right where he left off there in Vancouver.
It's pretty good.
Hasn't won himself a playoff series yet. Now, I will say this, right? Like, I think that the great name of today's show will be, or the podcast when it's released, is The Islanders Sit in Park. Oh, man. You talk about an apt way to put it. That's just like a dagger. Oh, sitting in park.
But that's a fair assessment, really.
Yes, absolutely it is. We've talked forever about how the team, we call it the treadmill of mediocrity. It's a different way to say it. The Islanders sit in park. Ah, shit.
Look at our offseason. We brought in Anthony Duclair, who's really on a good team. He's a third line forward, maybe. Yeah. I think it's a waste there because his skill set says top 6, but if he's in your top 6, how good is your team? And then, we had a first-round draft pick in 2 seconds this year. I mean, that's the accomplishment of the offseason. That's not really anything to run home about. But if you're an Islanders fan, it's like, woo, look at this. We picked Yzerman and, we had 2 second-round picks. Woo! Okay, you realize that's what most teams do every year. But it's been so bad around here that we didn't even have that. So it is a step in the positive direction, but it's maybe just to get us to the Mendoza line, if you will.
Well, Grumpy, I want to get back to this analogy of sitting in park. We're sitting in park. Do we at least have the car on? Do we have the AC running? Is it kind of like the AC is like on its last legs where the heat's starting to slowly crank up because the car's on its last legs, Grumpy? That's kind of the analogy I look at this as, because eventually it's going to be like, oh shit, we're sitting in park and the car is just hot as hell and you're sweating your ass off. That's the type of way I look at this Islanders franchise, because all of these ridiculously bloated contracts for guys who are well past their peak on long-term deals with the Islanders are eventually going to rot this team to its core.
Okay, that's fine. Let's do the ad read.
Okay, today's podcast is brought to you by DraftKings. You know the beautiful thing about being a sports fan? There's only like 2 days a year without a game. Just 2. With so much happening and so much action, it makes just about every game a draft, or every game a DraftKings. Makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's super easy for first timers to get started. Try by betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and select your team and place your first bet. And, I tell you, it really can't be much easier or simpler than that. If we've heard us talk about same game parlays, as you get more comfortable, you could say, hey, I'm expecting the Mets to win. And I'm expecting Francisco Lindor to win, the NL MVP. It's crazy to think that he's second in the running for the NL MVP. There's no shot he beats Ohtani, but still, anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent.
Second compared to Ohtani?
Lindor is second on the NL MVP voting list right now, based on betting odds. Anyway, and if you're new to DraftKings, you've got to check it out. New customers could bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code THPN. Again, that's promo code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or in West Virginia, visit www.100gambler.net. In New York, you can call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available if you have a problem. If you have a gambling problem, if you call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of the Boot Hill Casino and Resort. You must be 21 years or older, but age varies by jurisdiction. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. See terms and responsible gambling resources at dkng.com/base. Man, I tell you, the print was extra small today, Grumpy. So sorry for my stumbling and mumbling and muttering. But yes, brought to you by DraftKings. Tony Fitzel Little Cheese says here, the Islanders never say on time podcast.
He didn't put podcast down in there.
Okay, here you go. George Pace, Grump.
Lou isn't doing shit. Keep repeating that until it sinks in. Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like we didn't predict that.
Right.
Rain says, thoughts on that prospect swap, McGrody and Yeager. Both, of course, high-end top 6 potential prospects. Think McGrody is more NHL ready now. I agree. But Yeager is better overall tools. Pretty interesting. Yeah, I think it was a good deal. Honestly, I like what Pittsburgh did. If they can get McGrody to actually produce this year, maybe play him with Crosby, well, then he's going to use the skill that he has the most of, which is putting the puck in the back of the net.
McGrody's a bigger frame than a guy like Yeager is. McGrody's bigger, taller, thicker. Yeager kid's like 170, 165 pounds at like 5'11". So again, you could still survive like that in the NHL, but one guy's built like a man and one guy's built like a boy. So, you don't know how guys like that, the guys who are built like very frail individuals, the likelihood that, sometimes when the game gets a little bit more physical, they kind of turtle up a little bit. That's a little bit more likely. But comment here from Charles Dittmer, Grumpy. Is John Tavares retiring? No, I know they're unhappy with him up there in Toronto. The media always makes their issues. Well, welcome to playing in Toronto, John. You lie in the bed you make. I think last year's the last year of his contract. And people are already putting out opinion pieces like maybe the Rangers could sign John Tavares. It makes sense. Maybe he'll come to the Rangers. I think the likelihood that he'll be back with Toronto is probably low at this point.
Yeah, that's fine.
Frank K. Grump.
The biggest mystery is who will wear number 10. Will it be Duclair or Holmstrom? Maybe. How about Pele? He was number 10.
I'm thinking it's probably going to be Holmstrom, right? You think Holmstrom's already going to give up the number 10?
It should not be Holmstrom. He should have a number like 59 or some number nondescript.
George Pace, Grumpy.
Let's call it now. The season is over before it starts.
That was you, Grumpy.
I didn't say that.
Hey, you did. You said it's already over. The season's almost already over. Tony Pino here says, hopefully they give Wallstrom a chance in training camp.
I don't think they are. Just listening to Lamoriello, I don't think they are.
You said, hey, he was going to be playing on opening night, Grumpy, a top 6 guy. Remember that?
The thing, if they don't want to give him a shot, there's nothing he could do about that.
Look at you, you weasel. Look
Bias.
At you. Captain Weasel. Captain Weasel. Adam P. Grump.
The regular season just about over, says Grumps. That's great. Yeah, well, what can I tell
you? Look at this. Got here a comment from Andrew. Any update on the fantasy football when it starts up? Yes, thank you for that. And here is the email. If you like to send emails and you don't have a social media presence, we'll put this up. This is the email you send that to IslandersFansUnited@gmail.com for the fantasy football league there. So just make sure you're keeping track of that. Goon says here, Grump, who would you trust least coming at you from behind with a cool, what is that? A coho?
Coho, the stick.
Oh, again, like that wasn't around when I was young playing hockey, Grumpy.
Yes, coho sticks have been around freaking forever.
Coho sticks, what?
Oh, forget it.
I remember like CCM and like Bowers. Coho, what the hell is that?
Oh my God, you know nothing. I would say at this point in time, I'd worry more about Bertuzzo because Bertuzzi, he's probably not doing much skating nowadays. Easy to move away from him.
Oh man. Dale Ascrumpy says Lou loves running it back. Yes, he does. Stuart Oppenheimer says here, this is such a negative show. What's the purpose? I can't listen to you guys later. And then a not so nice letter there. Oh, that's okay, Stuart.
He shouldn't refer to himself as a douchebag. I don't think that's smart.
No, it's not.
Have a higher opinion of yourself, Stuart.
Yeah, Stuart, the point of the show is to talk about the Islanders.
Truth to power, my friend. Truth to power.
And discuss the actual items that we're seeing and witnessing firsthand instead of trying to sway the opinion of even when things are bad, they're good because we want everybody to come back and keep watching the Islanders. No, we just want to talk about what we actually see.
We are not mainstream media here. That's for certain.
That's correct. Adam,
we're great, Johnny. We're going to be competing for the Stanley Cup.
This guy, Maxim Soplakov, he's going to help us win the Stanley Cup. What a great job. We forgot to mention him earlier. And thank you, Nick Azada, for mentioning that. Maxim Soplakov was actually also brought in. I forgot about him.
And here's the biggest thing. You know what Carolina does at the end of the year? The Islanders might make the playoffs. Let's try to maneuver ourselves so we play them in the first round. That's an easy trip to the second round of the playoffs.
Oh, God. Adam P says here, TJ and Grump would keep me from buying season tickets. They are my MVP.
Buy tickets at your own risk.
You could just wait until, I don't know, mid-season.
You want the team to improve. You really want the team to improve. Stop buying tickets. Stop buying merchandise until they put money in, until they actually get somebody who turns a team around. Say mediocrity and the kings of suckitude is not good enough for us.
I wonder when Butch Goring and Brendan Burke are going to bring that up on the telecast, that if you really want to see change, you got to stop paying these guys dollars. So I wonder if they're going to mention that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's just so negative, Grump. Oh man. I don't know. I wonder if any other.
I think the show's been negative today.
It's not. I'm obviously making jest of the comment because some people just need everything to be just sunshine and rainbows, and some people need a little bit of realism. They got to be like, am I the only person seeing this ridiculous nonsense? And you're like, I've been seeing this for years, but all I'm told on the TV and all I'm told by the writers and the media cartel and the happy telecaster, how everything is great. Don't be upset. Look at how much better this was than the past 20 years when we had an owner who would only barely get to the salary cap floor. Look at how great things are now. We maybe make the postseason and get our asses whooped in the first round of the playoffs. This is great. It's so much better than it used to be, guys. Be happy.
A former Islander GM said the Islanders are stuck in Park. And I think that's fair. I actually think they moved from Park like they inched up at a light. That's what they did. They took the foot up just to inch up on the light a little bit. That's about the extent of the improvement they made this offseason. But it's better than they have in the last number of years when they've done absolutely nothing in the offseason. So it is a step in the right direction. I'm very adamant about that.
Okay, Gungun says here, TJ, what are the best-selling Islanders Never Say Die t-shirt designs? Will there be any new designs there for the time of the holidays? Grumpy can model them on the runways. No, thanks for asking, Gungun.
We should have the freaking T-shirt with the Islanders Never Say Die logo on it for the 100,000th time.
Do you want me to? You want to get another T-shirt? We haven't even done the T-shirts in a while.
The one with our freaking logo on it. The one I said for 2 years, that's the one we need to put out there.
Should we go ahead and make a logo T-shirt to make Grumpy happy? Should we do that, guys? We could do it, Grumpy. Maybe we could send you one for the holiday season. Are you shaking your head, Grumpy? It looks like you're flabbergasted.
Failure.
Dale S says Grumpy has lost it. He has.
That's the first time I've heard that.
This is when Grumpy was talking about McDavid. Mike says here, first time watching, are these two father and son? Yes, we are. How did you guess, Mike? No, we're just two fellas who like to talk Islanders hockey. Gungun says here, What are both your chaps' view on the very sensitive people saying that the Islanders front office are tyrants for having the Duke, that is Anthony Duclair, cut off his dreads? Are these foolers a bunch of jugheads? Yeah, so that was a big thing online. I was kind of like, I'm not sure to bring it up or not. Online, it was like a big issue that, oh man, they're making Anthony Duclair cut his hair. You know, they don't care about his culture. They don't care about this. I'm like, here's the thing. We've talked about it before. I think it's old and antiquated for Lou Lamoriello to do that. And maybe it's the reason why top name guys don't want to sign here in free agency. We've got the amazing facilities, the great arena, people that are willing to put dollars in. But when you sign here, that is the stipulation. You know that when you sign there, that they want you to be clean shaved and they want you to keep your hair in a certain way. And if you don't want to do that, you don't have to sign with the Islanders. You could sign at any one of the 31 other professional teams or any of the other organizations that are out there. You have complete autonomy in your choice. You don't have to take $2.5 or however many $3 million a year to play with the New York Islanders. You could go do whatever the hell you want.
I don't know if the Yankees still have that policy. They certainly did under George Steinbrenner. And that's the whole thing. If you don't make him adhere to the policy, you can absolutely not enforce it against anyone else.
Hey, Kyle Palmieri, grow the beard back, right? Because hey, Cal Clutterbuck, when you're here, grow the beard back. There are certain guys who only played with beards for years and years and years, but when they came here, they had to shave. That's just the rules of the team.
That's it.
And again, I don't like those rules. I think they're stupid. But if you signed the contract and you knew that going in, then that's what you adhered to. Simple as that.
I agree. I think the rules are dumb. I think that it could. Okay. You're talking about grown-ass men.
Yep.
And if their hair is more important than the contract and trying to win, that says more about them than it does about you. But I wouldn't want somebody saying, well, you can't grow your hair. You can. I mean,
exactly.
It doesn't matter.
I guess what? I can't grow my hair like that. But when people start trying to tell me what I can and can't do, I'm usually not going to be good buddies with somebody trying to overreach and tell me what I can and can't do. But guess what, guys? That's who Lou Lamoriello is. A guy who, when he fired and laid off a whole bunch of guys for the Devils organization, sat his happy ass right out there next to the elevator and sat with a shit-eating grin on his face as people were forced to pack their belongings up. And he said, get your ass out and pack and leave. So again, that's just who Lou is. George P says here, a loser mentality, TJ, about Connor McDavid. Andrew L says, ironic that Grumpy is telling somebody to jump off of an athlete snob. That's right, because Grumpy loves himself, his little Tom Brady and all those other players. That's right, Andrew.
He's a winner. He's a winner. He's a freaking winner.
Rain, Grumpy.
First time I got to disagree with Grumpy. McDavid was great the whole playoffs. He was not. Sure, Game 7, he could have been better, but that season he was still amazing. 8-1 games were because of McDavid. Okay. In the games that they lost, he had numerous chances, didn't finish the job. And I'm not saying – I said the last round of the playoffs. He was really good in the Western Conference. He absolutely was. That's what separates him, and this is what the whole conversation that we had in the beginning of the offseason, the difference between him and Lemieux. In the big moments, Lemieux, Gretzky, Bossy, Trottier, Messier, those guys always stood up and played their best. He did not. I'm not saying that he can't, but he has not at this point in time. I still say Edmonton, in my opinion, should be favorites absolutely in the West and probably for the Cup. I love what they did in the offseason. I'm just saying that he did not elevate his team at the end like a true all-time great does. Not saying that he can't become one. He's just not there yet. Crosby, same thing. Crosby did. Ovechkin did. He hasn't.
Andrew L.
Wait, who's the Brock Purdy lover? I think
that's right. You're the Brock Purdy lover, Grumpy.
No, it ain't me. That's for sure.
DJ says here the Oilers are the Vegas preseason pick to win the Cup.
Makes sense. That's fair. I think that's fair.
Doing, Grumpy.
Has the window of greatness closed for the Rangers? TJ, which Marvel superhero had a special sense to detect danger? Do you know what that was?
Spider-Man. My spidey senses are tingling.
Very good. Now, I do want to say, Goon, he's really not a Marvel guy. He's kind of a Sony superhero, but he is part of the Marvel cinematic universe.
Okay, I hate superheroes. I hate the superhero movies. I mean, like, you got a whole bunch of adults that are pretending to be like, oh, I'm watching all the children.
Oh, my God.
I hate the superhero movies. I hate them.
Jesus Christ.
Simple as that. Hate him. You won't catch me watching any of them. I do like the Ant-Man. He's funny. I like Paul Rudd.
He's a superhero. How come you don't like him?
I know. I don't like the premise of it. This guy gets fucking small and he gets big and he's got strength because he puts a suit on. I hate it. I hate the premise of it. But I like Paul Rudd. I find him funny. I like a few actors. What can I say? I've got my weaknesses. George Pace, Grumpy.
Can't wait to see the Islanders Kool-Aid tell me this is a mess of a roster, has a chance of winning the cup.
Yeah.
The Islanders don't have a shot to win the cup.
Yeah.
They didn't do enough. I mean, wouldn't you feel better if you were a fan of Washington? And who would have said that 2 years ago? Because, I mean, I thought Washington was really in dire straits. I love what they've done the last 2 years. Is Washington winning the cup? No, they're not. But I like the moves they made. They've gotten younger with guys. Okay, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Sometimes he shows up, sometimes he doesn't. Well, maybe they find a guy that he meshes with. You can't deny that the kid has talent, and he's a lot younger. The bigger thing, the contract. We have a lot of guys like that on our team, signed to term just as long, who aren't near as good. I just like what Washington's done. Are they good enough? No, not to win a cup. Are they good enough to contend for a playoff spot? I think they are. We're going to be in the mix with them. I feel. I do.
I've been saying for a while that Washington, I said this last year too. I'm like, they already had started the rebuild process.
Yep.
They stopped trading away their selections. And that was 2 years ago at the trade deadline where they said, okay, gotcha. We're getting rid of guys like Dmitry Orlov. We're bringing in guys like Rasmus Sandin, younger players there on that side that are contributing already, young defensemen. We're adding draft picks, and they're doing that every single year at the deadline. They're trading guys away on their expiring deals, and they're adding draft picks. That is what we need to start doing. Guess what? Brock Nelson's on an expiring deal. Kyle Palmieri is on an expiring deal. Sayonara. So long, guys. Thank you so much for your service here. We're going to be trading you for draft picks, and we're going to be starting a rebuild as well. That's what the Islanders need to start doing. Simple as that. Here you go. DJ Grumpy.
Fitzgerald killed it in the offseason. They will challenge the Rangers for the division title. I think you'll see the Devils will be better. I think they'll absolutely make the playoffs. They had a lot of injuries last year. A lot of things went wrong for them. New coach. It's the guy from Toronto, right? Who's the guy they brought in?
It's Sheldon Keefe. Yeah.
I mean, he's good at getting teams to the playoffs. Doesn't do anything in the playoffs, but okay. I just think they're way more talented than the Islanders. They still have a goaltending issue. Oh, wait, no, they got Markstrom, right? I think they got Markstrom.
They brought Markstrom in.
Okay, so they're absolutely going to make the playoffs. I think Rangers, Devils, Carolina, those are your top three.
Don't forget, you get Dougie Hamilton back, who missed basically the whole year.
Yep.
It's like adding Hamilton, Pesci, and Dillon. Huge upgrade. Yes, they stay healthy, and they are, they're
right.
trouble. Yeah, remember when they were healthy 2 years ago, they manhandled us. They did.
They're young and fast.
And they're a team with a good forecheck. Matthew S. says here, Puckpedia is awful. Absolutely. Rain, Grumpy.
In a few years' time, does Yzerman become a factor? People say he's a one-trick pony. His shots are lethal, but a one-trick pony playing alongside of Barzell could be a massive for Yzerman in 2 years. I don't know. That's what they thought about Oliver Wahlstrom, too. I'm just glad that they made a draft pick in the first round. And here's the thing. When you were picking where they were picking, he was ranked to go higher. And if you're going to be a one-trick pony, that's the type of trick I want to have, a guy who puts the puck in the back of the net.
That guy is so far away. And I think Heisman could be something.
He did drop from where he was supposed to be. He was like 1 or 2.
Because of the compete level, right?
Ago, but he's take a step back a little bit.
Because of the compete level in the production. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm glad we had a first-round draft pick.
I am too.
That was supposed to be. It's not a Simon Holmstrom, where a guy who's projected in the second round goes in the first round. This guy was projected to go in the top 15 picks or top 13 picks, and he landed to us at 18. So I don't think you can complain about that, honestly.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, like, that's the thing. I'm not gonna you have to have kicks at the can. You have to have punches at the ticket, and that's what we need there as Islander fans for our franchise. We just haven't had enough first round picks. Hopefully, Yzerman pans out. I think it's important. We'll be watching him. At least have high hopes that he can turn into something. We'll see how he plays, and
he's a long ways away though.
Yeah.
Mike says Yzerman is 3 to 4 years away. Not a great skater and plays no D. He's got a lot to learn to be a factor in the NHL. Yeah. Okay. Well. You know what? That's what you have those extra years. The kid's 18 years old, so he's got to work on his skating. And you can get away with a guy who's not great defensively if he can put the puck in the back of the net. Can I just say, Columbus traded Patrick Laine to Montreal and a second round pick for a prospect. I think that was a great move for Montreal. I just do. I thought it was a great trade for Montreal. Gungun says, funny how the Islanders can't beat the Canes can't beat the Rangers. Do new cars still come with CD changers?
I don't think they come with CD changers anymore. Okay. Drew says here, no Grumpy did win.
No Grumpy did. Okay. Did I? I don't even remember. It was so long ago.
Tony, hey, Grumpy.
Do you feel that there's a legitimate chance a Bridgeport Islander can crack the Islanders lineup this season, maybe out of training camp, and perhaps become a regular contributor? If so, who? I don't think there's anyone. The guys you're looking at are guys who would maybe be third, fourth liner types. And we're loaded in those who are younger, right? You got Wahlstrom, you got Holmstrom, you got McLean, you got Fashing. I don't see, a Maggio or a Dufour supplanting any of those guys. And defensively, no. That's what happens when you have nothing in the minors. There's not a whole lot of room for guys to move up. Everyone was already on the roster, unfortunately.
I'll say this here, and again, Thomas A. When you bring in guys like Saplakov, it just tells you what you think about. Oh, remember, Dufour was the flavor of the month, and it was Maggio. All these guys you just mentioned, they were all the flavors of the month. Oh man, he just won OHL Player of the Year. Oh, could you believe this? Dufour put up the most points in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League since Jonathan Huberdeau. Oh my God, for the St. John Sea Dogs, this is going to be fantastic. They're just grasping at straws when overagers produce a little bit because they need to find a reason to try to gaslight the fan base into thinking that we have really, really strong prospect pool. In reality, we don't.
Yeah, we don't. There's a reason why we're ranked 31st, 32nd every year.
Yep.
And maybe that changes in the next year or two. I think you've already seen maybe a change in direction from the front office where we're not going to trade our draft picks. We're going to try to accumulate more because they realize that they have to restock the cupboards because there's nobody there. And believe me, Lamoriello's not stupid. Wa's not stupid. They know this team is not good enough. They know they need to have a change in the guard. And I think we've kind of seen that change as glacial as it has been. I think we've seen it.
So Quinnipiac Curtis says here, fantasy football. Let's do round 2 of fantasy hockey.
Who won fantasy hockey last year?
This year I'm going to smoke Grumpy for reals. I remember you did.
I know I won fantasy hockey.
Fantasy hockey, I just don't pay enough attention to it. We can do if
maybe
there's
just not any good at it.
I don't care to watch fantasy hockey. Fantasy football is like I watch Thursday, Sunday, and Monday. So there's only 3 days I have to pay attention. Fantasy hockey, you got to pay attention every day. I'm like, I don't have the chance to do that every day.
You're a loser. That's why.
That's fine.
JP says, good evening, gentlemen and all. I'm writing from Coney Island at the Cyclones game. Single A baseball leaves a bit to be desired. That's true. But I'm going to the original Nathan's and riding the Cyclone with my son. Good luck, JP. Have a good time.
Absolutely. Have a good time, JP. Rick Roma says here, I can recall every NHL playoff since 1995, and what McDavid did this year is one of the greatest playoff moments I've ever seen. And I like Grumpy, but I'm not sure why he's choosing to die on a hill. It's because he doesn't ever want to be wrong, and anytime I tell him that McDavid was spectacular.
He didn't produce in the finals when he had a shot. That's all I said. I said he was great the rest of the playoffs. Absolutely was.
Lies.
He did not produce in the clutch moments of the finals, and that's why they lost.
It's a lie. That's a lie. Rick Rowland, the reason why he takes this hill to die on it is the same reason why, like with the Oliver Wahlstrom, he's going to use when he gets cut or he gets waived, it's, he didn't get a chance, and that's why he didn't crack the roster. He just a few days
How many times have we seen guys on the Islanders? How many times have we seen guys on the Islanders never given legit shots to be players.
He was given shots last year. I don't think I don't think he was given a legitimate shot to begin the year last year.
That's
And I
my
think
point.
he was relegated down to they don't have any plans for him. So again, but Grumpy, if you let me finish my point, you're going to use. He doesn't like to ever be wrong. So he doesn't want to.
Because I'm not wrong.
David's great. You are wrong on this, and you just refuse to admit it. 99.9% of the all NHL fans see the same way I do. Drew says here,
I never know why Grumpy is constantly thinking about me when it comes to fantasy sports. He must see me as a threat. Only way to explain why he continues to bring up my name. No,
I think he does. He does see you as a threat. That is a fact.
Drew, man, he likes to chirpity, chirp. Likes to run that mouth. And Drew, you know how much I hate guys who run their mouths. That's why I bring you up. And that's why I enjoy thrashing you at every opportunity.
Drew, he wants to beat you. And if he loses,
I do beat him. It's honestly, I don't think I've ever lost to Drew.
Oh my God.
No, he might have beat me sometime. I don't know.
Okay. Let's move on. Let's move along, please.
Freedom Fund Adventure says, what the frick? No alert to the podcast? Grumpy, I thought you were going to see baby Liza this week. It's this week coming up. Tomorrow, as a matter of fact, flying out to Chateau TJ, and we're going to see that little darling baby for a whole week. There is no one in the Islanders roster capable of protecting this roster. Lewis to blame. He is behind trends.
He's behind the trend. Yep. And the Islanders are now back to when they have totally a soft team that can be taken liberties on, and they can be intimidated, and you can injure Islander players.
Are you just making up half the words in this comment? And this, I mean, gee, it's like this seven. I'm like, what the hell are you even looking at? Those words don't even exist. You can't even make it up. If you take all the letters from all the words in there and reshuffle them around, they do not exist.
Okay, because the punctuation was not correct and the sentence was not correct structure-wise, so I amended it for him on the fly. You're welcome,
dude. No, you started changing at soft. You were off the chain. Isles are now back to when they went totally soft and teams began to take liberties, intimidating and injuring Isles players. This led to the famous fight night in Pittsburgh when the Islanders finally brought guys up. I don't know what the hell you were talking about.
I was reading it perfectly. Thank you. That was
sounds like you're reading some other comment. DJ DeAngelis says Lee can't fight, gets his ass kicked. Well, let's give credit. At least he
will fight. Yes, he'll just get his ass kicked, but at least he will throw punches when he needs to.
This is going to sound insane to some, but I would let Cal and Maddie have their final seasons of their careers back with us. Their careers ended at the end of last season. Yeah. I'd run that fourth line back for old time's sake. This is not the alumni game. Sorry, DJ. We're not contending for a cup. Would be nice to see those guys get a final run with the Islanders. The reason why we're not contending for a cup is because we keep on running those guys back for their last few seasons with the Islanders.
You know what? No, I'm actually on board with DJ. Interestingly enough, I think it would help us lose more games next year, which would give us a better draft position. So if that is the case, I am all on board for putting Cal Clutterbuck and Matty Martz back on the roster. And hell, even let's bring Bertuzzo back, because I need him playing every night minutes. I want to see, you're right, because we're not a cup contender. I want to see the Islanders by the trade deadline as a team that's completely out of the picture. So there's no way they can re-sign back Brock Nelson or Kyle Palmieri. So both of them have to be traded at the deadline so we can get assets back and restart this team. Hit the rebuild button. Freedom Fun and Adventure.
Is Sunx at another birthday party? He's not. But he's not in town once again. This will be the Islanders season. Teams will begin pounding on them in the preseason. When the season begins, it'll be open season on the Islanders roster. Injuries will ruin the year.
I tell you, when teams absolutely they're a little bit more physical. Think about it. You used to hate Bobby Clark. Oh man, he's a real dirty piece of shit. He was a real asshole.
He was. You never saw Bobby Clark play, so you don't know.
Let me finish my fucking point, please, Grumpy. What was the reason you always used to tell me why he felt like he could do that? Because he had everybody else on the team where if you tried to pick up, because Bobby Clark wasn't a big guy, he wasn't a strong guy, and people could have beat the living shit out of him. But guess what? Every other player on that team would have pummeled them if they ran at Bobby Clark or tried to be physical with Bobby Clark. When you don't have anybody that can do that, just a little bit, hey, gotcha, we're physical, we're tougher than them. Let's just go ahead and do what we want to them. Who's going to stop us on the Islanders? Oh, nobody.
Yeah, the NHL is totally different now than it was then.
I'm just saying there's still some times when games get physical And when that happens, injuries happen. Freedom Fund Adventure.
Wah will get pissed at Lou. We'll try to fire Wah and shift the blame. Lou will use injuries as excuses. We would have won the cup, but Barzy, Horvat, Dobson, and Sorokin got injured. Okay.
Max is here. Lou still has a job. Genius. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, he is very good at keeping a job. He's had 3 jobs in 40 years in the sporting industry.
That's better than most people in their actual professions.
Sure
He doesn't move up very often. And he's at the creme de la creme. Doug R says here, Lee wants his cul-de-sac buddies re-signed here. Matty Martz and Cal Clutterbuck. This is why we have the worst captain in the NHL.
That's fair.
Jack Woolston says, hello, big hello, chaps, from the UK. What's up, Jack? Hey, how are you, man?
I tell you what, it's kind of like, what time is it? Like 3 o'clock in the morning?
Hey, Jack. He's up late, man. He's up there partying. Here you go, Grumpy.
Goodwood says, I suggest a poll. Should Grumpy get his wish granted and a new shirt with the Islanders Never Say Die logo be released? Absolutely.
There it is.
That's a shirt I would buy.
Doug R. Grumpy.
Rather let these bad contracts play out or just buy out as much as you can and get rid of the deadwood. Yeah, but the whole thing was the old man kept on doubling down on that shit. So now you got Mayfield and Engvall are on that the interminable contract. You ever heard the Never-Ending Story, that movie? Well, this is like the Never-Ending Contract saga because he keeps on signing these guys to long-term deals when they're just ham and eggers. Bad moves.
There it is. Here, Grumpy. I got a comment there from Freedom Fund Adventure.
If Lou was a genius, the Islanders would be making certain they're in the draft lottery as high as possible so they'd have the opportunity to draft Long Island native James Higgins.
Center labeled as a generational talent.
If I'm reading the comment, just let me read it. I'm not a guy who's just going to throw random words in there from who knows what book. Treasure Island by.
Frank says here, Lou is embarrassing himself again. Don't tell a man how to wear his hair. I agree with you, Frank. Don't tell somebody to do that. I hate that. Lou, just so dictatorial. It's kind of like Grumpy. Drew says here,
TJ, is it just me or does Grumpy sound more irritable?
Yes,
it's like
does.
One thing you say, Grumpy goes scorched earth. Take a chill pill, Grumpy. Okay, here's the thing. TJ told me that he was going to bring in the Neil Smith thing before the show. But what does TJ do? He starts talking about all of Neil Smith's points before he puts the thing up. You actually play the thing, then you talk about it. You don't say what he's going to say and then play it. It's just stupid.
Grumpy, you don't know what you can do, Grumpy. I want you to relax.
Stupid.
I want you to woosah, Grumpy. Here's the thing I want to tell you this.
It's hard dealing with morons all the time, Drew. That's the problem. I'm on such a superior intellectual level. When I got to deal with the dullards, it's really problematic.
Let's wrap things up. You got 4 minutes left, so fucking let's keep on pace. Frank says here, TJ has that reaction on people, Drew.
Thank you very much.
And then Ryan P
says, I've never been less excited for an Islanders season, and I've lived through the 90s. I'm sick of being a bubble team with no chance at the Cup, and Duclair, plus some new fourth liners, isn't moving the needle.
You're exactly right, Ryan. Why do you think, in years past, it's like, man, we've got to do a show every single 2 weeks. Now, again, with a child, it's a little bit tougher, but we were still doing shows pretty much every week. Now I'm like, it's pretty much, it's done. What's that song that French or not? What's that song French?
I don't know. Get to the next comment.
Take it deep there.
The next comment.
DJ Grump.
Jackpot, TJ. We have to be sellers at the deadline, just like I've screamed the past 2 years. Well, you were right in there with us, TJ.
There it is.
Drew, is there really a point in rooting for this team to lose anymore? I don't think Lou is running the roster decisions. That's Patty Watt.
No, that's wrong.
I agree.
Incorrect there, Drew. Drew also says your life update passed both my midterm tests with flying colors. Now it's on to the final exam.
Congratulations, Drew.
And then Freedom Fund Adventure says here, Eisman is on a one-trick pony. Lazy pundits and alleged experts say that. Anyone who has coached him before and after the draft tells you the opposite.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like I said, we know absolutely nothing about Cole Eiserman, and we just don't know anything about him.
Grumpy Alexander, our favorite Tua fan, is here. He says, hey guys, been a long time working so much lately. I think this team Oh my God, has improved, is much
I
improved.
love
Air
Alexander.
makes us a better team. Okay,
I love
Alexander.
Alexander. He's a great
That's
guy.
why it's turn out the lights. The party's over. Okay, there's no shot. I mean, the team is they're stuck in park, as Neil Smith said.
Well, we're a team that's going to be contending for the last couple of playoff spots. And
Wild
just
card
in
spot.
the first round.
That's where going to be. Grumpy, how many times did Warden Jr.
Think you and Sunex out to the Warden. What was the worst time he dropped a dime on you guys? Nah, he never really did that.
What is Fink you? What is that?
Ratch out.
Oh, Good says, TJ, what do you enjoy more, Bucky's or the Islanders? Bucky's at this point. It's true. Alexander says here, I hope all is well. Send my love there, both you guys. Absolutely, Alexander. Thanks, man, for stopping by. Well, Grumpy, let's wrap things up here today. What do you want to say before we end the show today?
I want to say love and laughter to everyone who listens, and even those who don't, from TJ and the Grumpy Old Man and in absentia, Son X. And hey, I know it's a tough off season for the Islanders. Doesn't seem like we're just kind of stuck in the suck zone. But things can get better if we move the old man out.
I'm ready. The only way things will get better is by getting so much worse. It's just going to be the case. And there's section of the fans who hate when we get negative. Oh, I can't listen. You guys are so negative. Okay, I'll have to say this to you. How many more years can we be satisfied and happy sitting in no man's land, sitting in park and say, I'm happy with that existence? I am not happy with that. We have to be trending in a direction that shows progress. If you are stagnant and doing the same thing, you're never going to win a Stanley Cup. I'd like to see a Stanley Cup in my time frame. Grumpy probably wants to see a Stanley Cup before he dies.
Not happening.
Probably not. Not with Lou at the helm. Hey, but anyway. Thanks so much, Grumpy, for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in as well. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you all for all the engagement. I'm not saying, love and laughter from Sunex. Sunex is absent more often than he attends these shows these days. So he's got to start showing up to shows more frequently if he wants to get any sort of rep from us. Is he going to show up to tomorrow's show, Grump?
How do I know?
Well, I'm asking you. He's your son.
Oh, so does that mean I'm doing a show? We're doing a show at your house tomorrow?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. Good question.
Well, then you're questioning Sunex. You don't even know if we're doing the show tomorrow.
Maybe. I want his ass to be ready in case we do.
God.
Thanks,
everything revolves around you. Today, the show was supposed to start 6:00 Eastern today. It wasn't until 7:30. I have the text to prove when you said you wanted to start the show.
It sounds like bullshit. Anyway, let's end the show. Thanks, Grumpy. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you guys next Saturday.
Next time.